One of the reasons we wanted to have this hearing, we have historic legislation on the floor on cybersecurity for the first time in many years, and we wanted to call to the attention of the American people and to members of Congress as to what the real threat is. I've been dealing with this issue for a long time, but I think it's important that the American people, who most of them don't understand this issue, have a better idea of what is at risk. You know, when I look at theft of intellectual property to the tune of $1 trillion, that's a serious economic issue for the United States. When I look at countries like China, who have stolen our joint strike fighters, F-35 and F-22s, stolen those blueprints so they can manufacture those planes and then guard against those planes. When you look at China and Russia, who have hacked into every federal agency in the federal government, including the Pentagon, you know, we talk about the analogy, agents of a foreign power caught with paper files, walking out with classified or non-classified information. It'd be all over the papers, but yet in the virtual world that's happening. And no one seems to know or really pay attention to it. And then the final piece, you know, there's the espionage, the stealing of military secrets, satellite technology, rocket technology out of NASA. It's prevalent. It's everywhere. And when I look at the cyber warfare piece, that's the one that keeps me up at night the most. As we know, the genie's out of the bottle, just like nuclear, you know, weapons. It can be turned against us. We know what our offensive capability is, and it's pretty darn impressive. That capability turned against us, I think, is what frightens us, and who would have the motivation to do that. So my first question is to Mr. Henry. You said that we're really just hitting the tip of the iceberg and that the biggest threats are below the waterline. Can you expand on what these bigger threats are beneath the tip of the iceberg?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Let me, if I could just clarify my statement that I made about the sense of urgency. I certainly recognize everything this committee is doing. My concern is the holistic response of our society, public, private, other government agencies, and citizens themselves. So I want to make sure that was clear. That was my concern. When I talk about below the iceberg, I really talk about what is being seen on the classified side. And certainly in this environment, I can't go into details, but when you have people like General Alexander from NSA and General Hayden, former CIA and NSA, and Admiral McConnell, the Director of National Intelligence, Joel Brenner, the National Counterintelligence Executive, when you have people, they've all seen below the waterline. And when they are standing up saying what they're saying, I think people need to listen to that and understand that when you've got the senior leadership of the government talking about how significant and substantial this threat is, they've seen below the waterline. They've seen that big piece of the iceberg that the average person just never gets to see. What they hear about and see about in the media is really just a very small portion. And I think some of the witnesses here kind of alluded to that and talked about some of the concerns about SCADA systems, industrial control systems, some of the threats to, as you mentioned, our clear defense contractors. The threats there are so voluminous and so large, and the implications, while certainly the threat of credit cards being stolen is absolutely important, and I recognize that. But when you talk about the plans to our next generation weapon systems and our adversary being able to prepare a defense today or to build devices that can counter or actually exceed our capabilities, that is a significant danger to this nation, and people have to understand that.
And I have the director of NSA telling me it's not a question of if, but when. Where do you see the biggest threat coming from?
I think it's two of the groups I mentioned, Mr. Chairman. I don't worry about China and Russia. They're not going to start a war just for fun. But I don't know if I'd say that for Iran or North Korea when they get the capabilities. I know the full committee is going to have a hearing on Iran on Thursday, but they have a little bit of a grudge match. They feel like we're somehow responsible for Stuxnet, and they are trying to create a cyber army. The other group to watch, and the group that's more interesting that I think we've all raised, are these hacker groups who have anarchic or anti-government tendencies, very strong cyber skills. Some of them have excellent hackers involved, and there are so many vulnerabilities, and there's so many tools that eventually, you know, the line I always refer to is a headline we saw last year about how Anonymous declares war on Orlando, right? Well, what that meant was they defaced the Orlando City website. Maybe a year from now, they'll be able to do a little bit more, and I think we're on track to find that out the hard way.
Well, my concern with those groups is that they sometimes may be organized crime, maybe the real perpetrator, but they take the credit for it and sort of provide a ruse. I see my time has expired. I could ask a lot more questions, but thank you for being here today.